This video brought to you by my YouTube members and patrons. Thank you guys. How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to another subreddit video. Today we are going to be returning to r/MaliciousCompliance, a subreddit dedicated to unreasonable requests, especially in the workplace, being met by exactly what they asked for. Very quickly before we begin, I just wanted to mention, YouTube members and patrons, you guys get an extra video every single week for as low as £1 a month. That equates to about 25p per video. So if that is something that interests you, please do consider joining, as it really helps support the channel. However, if you don't want to support me in that way, which is totally fine, you do not have to, there is another way that you might consider supporting me, which is to, if you're on mobile and you have the feature unlocked, you can go down to the comments section, you can swipe to the side, and you'll have the ability to hype the video. This, I believe, helps extend the video's reach. Also, YouTube says, but being honest, YouTube is pretty vague with how they give us new features. They're just like, figure it out. So, I don't know, give it a try, hopefully it helps the channel. But other than that, let's get straight into the video, shall we? A 10-minute favor versus €1,000 bill. Once, at a company where I worked as an architect, I used the company's laptop's Photoshop to make my daughter's birthday invitation. It took maybe 10 minutes. My boss saw it in the recent files while we were reviewing a project together and told me the computer was for work only. I said, okay, because, well, what else was I going to say? That same week, I traveled to another city to survey a building. I did everything with the tape measure and laser the company provided. When I got back, he asked if I had already downloaded the photos because he wanted to see the inside of the building. I told him that I hadn't taken any photos since my phone was personal. He was furious on the inside, but couldn't show it because months earlier, I had asked the company for a work phone and they had refused. The next day, a brand new Samsung appeared on my desk, and off I went again to the same city to take the photos, with the company paying for flights, hotel, and all the doubled expenses. This is a good one. This is a good feeling one where it's like, yeah, he's already put in a request for something. It was denied. They have asked him not to use company things for personal things. That's fine. That goes both ways. No personal things for company things. And naturally, because the phone request was denied before, he couldn't use his own phone. No photos. Yeah, that's just satisfying watching a company reject your thing and then immediately find out why it was that you asked for that thing. Because chances are, if an employee has asked for a work phone, it's in the company's best interest to supply one. Boss said I must use my vacation before month end, but also no one can take time off. So I read the policy. Company sends a shiny HR email, subject line all caps, use it or lose it. We had to burn our remaining paid time off by the 30th or it evaporates into the sun. Same day, my manager announces in stand-up that due to the quarter end, no one can take time off until the 1st. I ask how to reconcile that. He shrugs and says talk to HR. HR says talk to your manager, cute loop. So I open the handbook because I am a petty librarian when annoyed. Page 14 has this little sentence I never noticed. Pay time off requests not explicitly denied in writing within 48 hours are considered approved. There is also a note that partial day PTO is allowed in 1-hour blocks. Thank you, legal team. I submitted 10 separate requests. 2 hours every morning next week, 2 hours every afternoon the week after, a random Friday 3 to 5 to watch a plumber, and 1 full day to visit my mum. I sent the requests in our HR portal, which auto-emails the manager and CCs a shared mailbox nobody watches. Then I went back to my tasks and set reminders. 48 business hours pass. No denial. The portal changes each request to approved. Green checkmark, confetti gift. Monday comes and at 9:58 I put in a cheerful note in the team chat. Heading out, see you at noon. Manager pings me to hop on client call. I reply with a screenshot of the policy and the portal approval. Silence. Then 3 dots typing, then nothing. By Wednesday, our calendar looked like cheese. Half the team remembered they also had paid time off sitting around and started filling it in little blocks. Meetings kept colliding with green bars. Finance realized that if we did not use the days now, they would be paid out at separation later, which they hate. HR wrote a new post saying we should coordinate, but that approvals already granted stand. My manager called a huddle to ask why productivity dipped. I said we are following HR's instructions to use paid time off. He said he meant in November. I sent him the original email timestamped this month. He sighed and said he never thought anyone would actually read the handbook. I used every hour. Took my mom to lunch, and my plumber fixed the cursed sink at 3:40 while I drank tea. Next week, a new policy appeared. Paid time off must be requested in full increments during quarter end, and managers must respond in 24 hours. Thanks for clarifying. truly. So in the UK, saying you have to use the rest of your paid time off by the end of this month, but also no one can take paid time off this month, would be illegal. That would be a straight up a crime. In the UK, we have something called annual leave, which is legally the amount of time that an employer has to allow you to be able to take off. They cannot prevent you from taking off your annual leave. Like, you have an annual leave limit, they cannot prevent you from taking off less than that limit in a year, right? It's the law in the UK. So this whole story is kind of wild to me, but it's once again, I just love seeing them get, you know, the employer says something unreasonable, so the person reads their own policy, which for God's sake, people, read your employment policies, and found, I can use this to my advantage. And they did. You need to tie your hair up. So during the 1970s, my dad worked for the Royal Mail, British Postal Service, as a postman. Like many men at the time, he had long hair, just below his shoulders. His managers had an issue with this and told him he needed to sort his hair out and tie it up if he wasn't going to cut it. Now, my dad is an asshole, and it came in handy here. He went home that day and told my mum, and she agreed to get up early to tie his hair for him before work. The next day, he went into work with the most delightful pigtails, tied up with some lovely pink ribbons. My dad greeted his manager and said he'd tied his hair up, as requested, and then went off to do his round. He wore his pigtails for a week until coming back with his hair down after a weekend off and never got shit for it again. I love this. Not only is it a funny way to get back at this rule, to completely defeat this rule, but also I'm sure that brightened up a lot of people's day that week. Like, a lot of people throughout that week encountered a funny delivery guy with his hair up in pigtails with bright pink bows. I don't know, I would laugh at that. I'd find that funny. I think that would make my day. So he's probably brightened up a lot of people's day by doing that. Like, overall, that's just, it's fun. I like that. It's harmless, it's fun, and it gets back at a stupid rule because, like, why does a Royal Mail postman need to have his hair tied up or can't have his hair down? There's no reason for that. Student made demands regarding a project and found out the hard way. One of the degree modules I teach involves students working on a group programming project. Nothing too elaborate, but the aim of the module is to develop skills they will need if they go on to work in an IT field. After all, if you're doing a computer science degree, you must be thinking of going down that route. This one student is an absolute entitled nightmare. He uses Gen AI for a lot of his work, and it really does show. He always pushed back on written remarks on his work, but every time I sit down and ask him to explain the code he produces, he struggles and often has no idea how the code he submitted works. In this project, he came up and told me he cannot finish work with the others in the group and must work alone. I explained that there are specific group activities and efforts I will be marking, and that I need to see his input within the group. There was no way I could excuse him from the group activities in the module. However, I could see that he was not going to budge and therefore complied with his demand to work on the project alone. All the students in my class had been assigned to their groups, and I did check in with them on a weekly basis. This one guy was steadfastly refusing to work with the rest of his group, and as I complied with his request, he was working on his project alone. In my interim feedback at the end of each stage, I repeated that he really should work with the group or he risked a failing mark for the module. I made sure that his feedback was sent to him both in hard copy and also via email with red receipts, which I kept. Cue the end of the module and the submission for marking. Sure enough, the one student submitted a project based on just his own work and had not engaged with the group he had been asked to work with. There were several issues with his project. First and most important was it didn't meet the brief. The code simply didn't do what we asked for. He lost marks for that aspect of the project. As he had not worked with others in the group, he was not awarded any of the group marks allocated for the work. Because his code was so far away from the specification, I called him in for a viva voce to explain the code, and he demonstrated a complete lack of understanding of the code he submitted. More marks dropped. His eventual mark for his assignment was a hard fail. He must now resit the entire module. There is of course one real downside of this whole thing that affects me. I've got him in my group again for the reset of the module. So this is someone that just deserves to fail, right? At the end of the day, I think that's it. This person just deserves to fail this module. Like, who goes to a computer science degree involving coding without knowing how to code? It's like, yeah, no, I can get through this whole module just by vibe coding. That'll work out. That'll totally work out for me. I don't need to actually learn how to do anything involved in this degree. I'll just vibe code. They deserve to fail. I am of the opinion, and I think a lot of educators guys will agree that using AI to write code or to write essays or to write anything in that regard should be classed as plagiarism because you didn't write what you're rewarded. And like the fact that he can't even explain what the code that he vibe coded does just completely proves that he doesn't deserve to pass this module. This is someone that clearly had the money to get into a degree from their family, doesn't actually want to put the effort in and thinks that they can just glide through it by cheating and vibe coding. But because they haven't put the effort in, they're not passing the course. But it's just wasting everybody's time. And this is just a person that deserves to fail. I need this report earlier. So I work in a science lab, and normally we write up our results for the day around 2 p.m. when all the testing is done. We leave at 3:30. The boss's boss, mostly admin and managerial, works 9 to 5. The boss's boss wants this report magically earlier in the day before we are done with all our testing. He walks into the lab holding one of the reports. This is paraphrased. I need this earlier. You guys are always giving it to me after the day's already over and I can't make any changes. I need to know what's going on sooner rather than later to make the adjustments. 11 would be much better. I try explaining the report's done at 2 because that's when all the numbers are in. If I do it earlier, it won't be complete. He says back, what will be missing? This and this. I point to the sections. He says, oh, those aren't important. We don't make changes based on those. So I ask him to send me an email as a reminder to me and to the rest of the lab as well so they can make this change. Will do. He walks back to his office and sends it. I'm floored. So I ask my direct boss and she smiles too, knowing what would happen. For the full month, we comply, but we leave 2 uninteresting numbers off the daily report every day simply because the numbers aren't in yet. The testing hasn't been done. Everyone in the lab is on board with this. So the end of the month comes around and the boss is looking to print out his monthly compliance report, and he has a big empty section for 2 pages. He can't figure it out. All of us have left by 3:30, and what should be a simple 5-minute print and hole punch job he does at the end of every month, he has to go and find where 2 points of data are kept. Boss's boss was stuck staying late on the last day of the month to get the report in. My boss ignored his calls for a few hours, but finally gave in around 7 to get back to him and tell him where he could find the numbers. Everything is labeled in the lab. He should have been able to resolve it himself. He was there till 8, putting data in. This is another case of like, this is exactly what he asked for. The people in the lab couldn't have done this any other way. This is what he asked for. This is what he got. This is the result. Chances are, in a lab, if something is done a specific way, like the way reports are submitted, it's for a reason, right? It's always some dumbass manager like that thinks they know better than the people that have been doing this for some time that always finds out exactly why it's done that way. But also, if he had a problem with not having the whole day to make the changes needed to make based on the report, instead of taking the report in at the end of the day and going, right, now I have to rush through all of these changes, just shift your schedule slightly, right? He could have instead taken the report and done that the morning after. And instead, each day, just did the report he received the day after, when he has a whole day to go through that report and make all of those changes. It would require shifting that report back 1 day. That's it. That's all that would need to happen. They can submit their report with all of the information at exactly the right time that they normally do, and he would not have to change his daily process at all because he would get that report in the morning the next day and could go through and do it. I don't understand how that, as a concept, never crossed his mind. Sure, I'll keep my mouth shut. This happened years ago, but it still makes me grin Grinch style. I was working on a really big project at the time. The VP was aware that I was the main resource on the project, so he included me in the status meetings. My manager did not like that. She didn't want anyone else getting any kind of recognition for the project, so I was instructed to sit there and keep my mouth shut. The next status meeting came around, and I did just what she told me to. I sat there, taking notes and saying nothing, right up until the VP started asking questions about project details, which she couldn't answer because she was the only person attached to the project who did not actually work on the project. She was furious, but what could she do? After that disaster, I was allowed to attend and participate. You mean the way that it should have been from the start? The person working on the project gets the credit for that project? Crazy! This does actually remind me of a previous aquarium that Leo used to work at. I'm not going to name any names, but constantly Leo would start a project and would work that project almost through to completion. But because he was only a support biologist, he would get get moved to a different project, and someone else would pick up his project, finish it, and then effectively get all of the credit for the project. This happened on multiple things. This happened on things like raising jellyfish and smoothhound sharks and various other animals, right? And various other like maintenance projects and all sorts. Really, really frustrating. And this would happen constantly. And unfortunately, what this resulted in was Leo leaving the aquarium. He now works at a different aquarium where he gets a lot of recognition for the work, and he does a lot of the things that he did at that other aquarium, but better. And naturally, a lot of the projects that he started that other people now work on at the old aquarium, those people don't know how to actually do those projects and often fail at doing those projects. They go wrong and things collapse and fail, which wouldn't happen if those people had actually like listened to Leo and his advice and like followed his directions on what to do with those products, and maybe actually did some of their own research, which they seem to just be like allergic to doing, because despite the fact that Leo doesn't work there, when things go wrong with like the smooth hounds, he immediately gets text messaged. He doesn't work there anymore, and they're still messaging him for like advice on how to look after animals that they should know how to look after. It's kind of embarrassing. It's kind of pathetic and embarrassing. He's a lot happier here. But anyway, that is where I'm going to end the video, everybody. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed. If you would like to support me in making more content like this, then I have a Patreon in the description down below, or equally you can click on that join button on the channel to support me. It helps a lot more than you might realize, but by no means should you feel like you have to. I'm going to keep making content regardless. But a huge, massive special thank you to all of the wonderful YouTube members and patrons that do support me. All of your names are up on screen right now. It genuinely helps so much, and it genuinely means so much. So thank you to everybody that does. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope you have enjoyed, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Peace out.